Well, T.I. Park was owned by private people a couple different times in my lifetime, 3 times actually. First time was owned by J.B. Shepherd. In fact, he had a son named Felix and a daughter named Roxy. And Roxy is the reason why they don't allow bicycles to go on the sidewalk, because he got hit by a bicycle. A kid was hurt. Then he got in sort of a financial bind, and he sold the park to a man by H.W. Kreuzberg. Now, both these men were benevolent dictators and loved T.I. Park, which was very lucky to have at that time. Now, Kreuzberg, he eventually decided to sell and open the Mrs. K's Tea Room in Washington, D.C. He left the park. Now, he had the second mortgage bonds of the park. So he sold them to the people of the park. And there was 200 people, cottage owners, that bought bonds here. They run from $500 to $1,000 a month. My Uncle Homer had a $1,000 one. Boy Mitchell had $500. My dad had a $500 one. So they were owners of the T.I. Park, and they were going to run the T.I. Park, right? Now, Shepherd had put up the first mortgage bond as collateral for a loan he'd made in a Syracuse bank. That's the first mortgage bond. Well, now, as the people run the second mortgage bonds, they had about an $80,000 floating fund. And they elected a Dr. Bilby, who was not a good businessman, an awful nice man. He's where the Iron Cottage is, as president. And they had their board of trustees, and the first error they made was paying Ross Andrews, who was a very capable man, as manager, $10,000 a year would be like paying a man $50 today. This is out of the 80s. And then in 29, the dock went out, and that was $5,000, and some high gale wind, and pretty soon they were broke, because they wouldn't raise assessment, which you have to do here. So they'd have an annual meeting in the chapel. When I'm a young fellow, I went to these meetings. They'd all have a big row. So there were 2 factions set up. One was the East Siders. Now, they got rid of this Ross Andrews, and they had to have a new manager. So the East Siders pushed a fellow named A.C. Brown over here, who was a superintendent in the L.C. Smith typewriter company in Syracuse. A very capable man. Now, Chamber of Commerce, which was run a lot by the Mitchells, Lloyd and Tom Homer and Loyal Fairman, the barber, and some of the business people, they called themselves the Chamber of Commerce, and they run Garfield Wilder, who owned the Rochester hotels for many years. They put signs all over the trees and so on and so forth. So eventually they had the vote, and Garfield Wilder won on this, out of these 200 people. He won the manager of the park. Now, he, of course, would work for this board, which was a second mortgage bond board, the people board, people of the park, Democratic. Now, this run along about a year or two, of course, they began to criticize him for not doing this and not doing that. And they were going to fire him after about 2 years. Now, his girlfriend's name was Mrs. Joy, and they own a big plumbing business in Syracuse, and there's still a Joy company. She had been the hostess, very stunning woman, at the Rochester. And she'd heard about, through the banks and her connections, she'd heard about E.T. Shepherd, who had gotten a financial bind, and this first mortgage bond with 20 shares of stock in it went up on a chopping block on a certain day, and she went in there with her money and paid $5,000 and got the first mortgage bonds that went with the 20 shares of stock, and for her boyfriend. She wasn't married to him then. So the meeting come on here unbeknownst, this is unbeknownst to anybody, and the meeting had a big meeting, and they all yelled and hollered. One guy said, well, you're casting pearls to sea. I can remember his name was Long, and they were fighting and going to throw Wilder out, and he was a big man anyway, and big forceful fellow, and he come right in the room in the middle of the meeting, and he had his briefcase, and he says, it's all over with it for you folks. Right here is control of T.I. Park. Now, how you had control, Bert Grant owned 20 shares of the Clayton Bank and a few others, so that ended the second mortgage bondholders, and that ended the people owning the park. So they immediately put it right in bankruptcy and wiped them all out. So that is the way Garfield Wilder got to be manager for so many years, because he had the bank behind him and a few other stockholders that made him the full control. And until Staub arrived, and Wilder was a sick man. He run it for years and years and years. And then Staub, he went around, he picked up Mrs. Joy's shares as she was getting old and sick, and Wilder was sick. He got that shares, he got, both him and I got the shares of the bank, which is 20 shares, and I got 10 of them, and he bought most of the shares. He had ended up with 76 shares out of 102. And I had 13 shares. So you can see how that second mortgage bondholders did. In fact, you can see what happened when the people run the park. They wouldn't raise their own assessment. And they couldn't get together on anything. They were fighting. Imagine signs all over the park from one side to another. And big rows in the meetings. Hooting and hollering, 200 people. Imagine these are all intelligent people here. Real awful.